Hey everyone, it's Matt Hammond, IPO Warriors. Just getting back here a little bit late. Had some appointments and such. So let's see what we can do today. We've got RVSN looking like it's going to go live today. There we go. And that means we have an IPO to trade. However, again, it looks like we're not getting much help from Webull on the indication price. So we may be needing to find an alternative resource for that. We also have GNS, which doesn't really look like it's going to go live today. But let me get myself together here and see what we get. All right. Got 3 people watching. Welcome, fellas. Hey, Steve. Well, I'm not sure how much we're going to be able to do here. We're seeing, well, let me share my screen since I look a little bit messed up here. How do I share? Chat, leave studio, share screen, share. There we go. So what are we seeing here? We are seeing bids and buy orders. We're not seeing any indication. We have no idea what time this is going live. Let me fly over here to Twitter and see if let me post a little tweet here. Live streaming the RVSN debut. I will put my YouTube thing on it. So I saw pricing on RVSN. I did not see pricing on GNS. So I do not know if we're going to get that live today. Seems like maybe no. Here is the link. All right, there's a little delay. And sending this out. Okay. RVSN. Let's see what the rest of the world is saying about RVSN. Alright, this does not look like it's going live anytime, any minute. So, right now we're just watching. It looks like something happened in the SPY. SPY dropped a full point just now. That must be the Chicago, whatever, something index, price index. Does not seem to go all that well, apparently, or maybe that's just an initial overreaction. So let's see what's going on and see what Twitter thinks about this RVSN. Oh. We got Momo, it's a cool trader here. Look at the pricing, posted your ages deals, my thoughts. I'll buy 2s if I get them. RVSN, new IPO released with warrants. RVSN IPO today. 2 million float is really kind of no revenue. Still in pilot testing stage with warrants. Wait for dips. That seems to be the play. Buck and Tweaky. We chat a bit. Method of delay. Price to IPO tomorrow. Small float with warrants. Similar play to LCFY. Catch the reversal. Doesn't come out too hot. Always get in before the big crowd should it hit. Looks like we got RVSN. And then we get down to my tweets yesterday. So this one's got warrants. It's very low float, but these have not been flying out of the gate. It's an Israeli kind of like smart rail company. It's something like image processing for train safety, the possibility to do things like automated train driving, I guess, engineering. Supposedly, well, I've been informed that conductors do not drive the trains, that actually engineers drive the trains. So this technology could replace like autopilot for trains. Not super exciting. I don't think anybody's too excited about any IPOs right out of the bat and right out of the gate these days. I'm going to check up on GNS, which had been scheduled today, and no updates to the business because it's GNS. There's that. So GNS also is the ticker shared by a cryptocurrency, Gains Network. So there is going to be a little bit of confusion there. On Twitter, we've got mostly GNS Gains Network picks. Couple people posting some things about GNS, the stock company, but nothing. No pricing news, nothing I see here on anywhere that is related to the IPO pricing. So without IPO pricing, generally isn't going to go live. And GNS, blah, blah, blah. No, nothing here. And even Webull has it just showing as the expected listing date being on March 25th, which, as we all know, was last week. So I'm gonna check and see if I get any clues here on E-Trade as to what's going on. I also see for GNS, nobody's even placing any orders. So kind of assuming that we are not going to see an IPO today from Genius Group, which may mean it's tomorrow. Bosted has, or a lot of these sort of, especially if it's kind of what we've referred to as a stealth IPO, those have come out on Fridays. It used to be sort of the thing, the tradition would be that they would debut on Friday, and we would just kind of keep an eye out, especially on Fridays, for any kind of anything there. All right, we got Fit Girl Allie Angel joining us here in a couple minutes. She has some other platforms that might give us a better idea of the indication price, since we are not seeing anything. We're not seeing anything definitive in terms of pre-debut pricing here on RVSN from Webull. It may just be early. We do usually get some kind of, we often get the, information here, or you guys can't see what I'm doing over here, but we have Benzinger Pro. And Benzinger Pro often will give us, when we put it in, will give us like scheduled to trade at blah, blah, blah. We're not getting that here. So without that, we don't know when to start watching. Could be in 3 minutes, could be 10:10, could be 10:30, could be 11:20. There is no set time at which they have to start trading. They do usually schedule a time at which the bidding starts. And for these low float IPOs, it doesn't usually take much longer than the mandatory 10 minutes. So if we are told that shares open for bid at 10:10 and then are open to go live by 10:20, then it usually will be 10:21, 10:22. They usually don't stick around to take whatever they can get because not a lot of shares to balance anyway, and that's can be a good thing. But if we see kind of an insane debut premium, then we will be surprised. Otherwise, I expect this to open without much warning, and the prices start moving from there. So I am going to bounce around a little bit. Okay, we just saw an order. These don't mean a whole lot, but we saw an order for $5 here at the we got 20,000 share bid at $5. We'll see if that holds or if that's just a joke here. Watching some other tickers that have been hot recently. Wow, FRGE is now up to $44. That's pretty crazy. That was one of those de-SPACs from last week that has completely blown the handles off the doors. What else? Andrew, what's up? No indication. Can't trade on TD. Orders good on Quest Trade Canada. We'll get an indication at 11. All right, so we'll be here a little while. I am going to wait for Ali to take over for a minute. I'm gonna need to get coffee once she does. Oh, my daughter knocking on the balcony door here. So I may pause out for a little bit here to take over. Try to DM her. Started a little bit earlier than we needed to, so don't really want to cut the stream, but so FRGE is going crazy. What else is up? GNS is up, next gel's up, TKLF, LAP went down, not moving. All right. Did she short FRGE? I hope not. Not a good idea to short anything that's in sort of the the momentum verse. Once you start playing with, it's like shorting GME or shorting AMC because you think that they're going to just lose steam. It's hard to know, but I just would go find something else to trade on than any of those. I don't understand what makes those moves, how they move. It's just kind of people wake up one day and all decide that they're going to buy one stock with no headline, no nothing. It just runs. And FRGE, some kind of company that lets you buy into. Let me try to help Ali out here. Okay. Be able to okay. So I think Allie's here. I gotta probably add her somehow. All right. Hey, Allie.
Hey, can you hear me?
I can.
Awesome. Sorry,
little bit
I
of
sound like
static
death,
there,
which is why we're not going to do a video this morning.
No worries.
Um,
We're getting a little bit of static on your mic, I think.
okay, not surprised. Give me 1 second.
Yeah. No worries.
Okay, is that better?
Much better, yeah.
Okay, awesome.
Cool.
So the new laptop doesn't like my old microphone.
Uh-oh. Yeah.
I'm like, seriously?
Compatibility.
Well, no, I think it's just the microphone's like a year and a half old, and the Mac's like, no, I'm only a month old, so I don't like you. I don't know. It works on my other one just fine, but this one I have an issue. All right, I'm on my Apple, just basic
Apples
mic.
are a little bit,
They're like a
pretentious
13-year-old girl. It's great. So
I don't want to play with him. All right. Have you done any charts or anything you want to share with us?
I don't know how to do the share screen right now, and I've got so much up right now with account numbers and everything. I don't I'm afraid to.
Can't dedicate a monitor to it.
Well, I'm on my laptop with this, so and I don't know how to with StreamYard. I haven't used it yet.
There's a little button down at the bottom that says mute, stop cam, settings, stop screen, and share. Yeah.
Okay. Let me
close. You can choose
a bunch of stuff.
Yeah. Okay.
Okay. Yeah. Give me 1 second to close like all of my screens.
Sure.
And I'll close this. Oh my gosh, I have so much up. Okay, so that is the video from last night. I have so much going on my screens. It is a little bit crazy. Your daughter is not happy right now.
She's on the balcony having a good time.
Oh, is she? She's okay. She's that kiddo.
Yeah.
Gotcha.
Yeah, she's just screaming for fun.
It works.
Yeah.
All right. So, okay, I think I got everything pretty much closed. And then we have that. All right. So I have a dedicated screen that I know of. And so we're going to try this. So I'm going to try to do Thinkorswim because I don't know how to shut off the account number on. Okay, so if I hit share screen, it's going to do the whole screen.
I think so. I haven't actually hosted another person, and this is what we do.
So we're going to try this.
Learning as we go. Yeah, tutorial on StreamYard.
Sharing screen is easiest with 2 monitors. Oh, I love this. Oh, okay. So I don't have Chrome. I can't. It says if you like to share the audio, also use Chrome.
Yeah, well, let's try it. Share the audio of your screen. Yeah.
Yeah. Let's try it. Okay. We'll see. So you have entire screen. Oh my goodness. Are you guys kidding me? Yeah, this is denying share screen on mine. It's got to be in my settings. I think I had that issue with Spencer also.
Okay.
Entire screen. Notifications. Allow. Let's try this. So I don't know. I don't know the answer to this. I'm going to hit allow. Can you see my screen?
Yeah, hold on. Add to stream.
I can see you in the screen. All right, so I have to figure out how to get back over. There we go. You are sharing the screen. You are sharing your entire screen. There we go. All right, so what was the ticker? I'm going to put in one that I wanted to talk about, actually.
Cool.
Sorry. Or any of the DSPACs, actually. All right. Are you able to see my screen?
I am seeing something kind of frozen.
Okay. Yeah, the other issue that I have is we have mountain internet. Yeah, so we run on 100 megs. It's really frustrating. Part of the reason I can't wait to move to the beach.
Yeah, that sounds like you'll have. I'm
Yeah,
gonna just
it's
check on
frozen.
the see what it's showing on the live thing. No, it's got me frozen. So I'm
Yeah,
gonna
it's got you frozen.
back
All
out
right,
of that.
so
Yeah.
I'm going to stop sharing because I'm sure that I'm the issue on this one.
Okay.
And we'll go from there. Maybe.
Let me go back to sharing mine.
Yeah, I'll go back to sharing yours because mine is, I think honestly, it's the internet's just too slow. Because with Spencer, I had tried the same thing and it was just like frozen sitting there. Couple months at most. We're working on selling the house right now.
All right. So,
all right, so we'll sit there.
What did you want to bring up? I can bring up another ticker.
All right. So yesterday I missed Starry, STRY. It's Starry Group Holdings. That was our DSPAC for day one.
Okay.
And I actually wanted to talk about the redemptions on these because we're noticing a trend. You and I were actually talking about it the other day with the ones that have high redemptions seem to fall really quickly, but then they reverse. So my team is actually going to be working on, I'll probably actually do it on the drive tomorrow to Vegas as far as pulling information through. But I want to get all of the information on the redemptions because we're seeing a pattern. The ones that have high redemption, they open lower. So obviously under that $10 SPAC level. So they open lower, they kind of chill for a few days, and then they run. And so those are the ones that I'm really trying to catch. Everybody knows I like buying really cheap things and, yay, coupons basically. But with these, if we can get these on the lows because we know what to expect based on the redemptions, then it's a solid play.
So what are the numbers on this one? What were the redemptions on this one?
So that's the thing is we're still working on it, but I can tell just by how it opened that it had a high redemption. I use a couple different things, but Backtrack is the main one that I use. And they do have an area that you can download. She's having fun.
Yeah.
But yeah, so anytime they open below 10, a lot of times I'm trying to pull up the other chart, but of course my internet's slow right now. So the way to know just by looking at the chart on the redemptions, the date of the last day they have to redeem will have a drop. And so on this one, Starry used to be a couple days ago, hang on, FMAC. So what I would do is look up FMAC and see what the drop was. I think their redemption was a week ago, a little bit over. Give me 1 second. Redemption date. I know I have it in here. There it is. The redemption was the 14th of March. So they had, basically what that's saying is they have until the 14th of March. Anybody who is in it can redeem for either that $9 to $9.50. And so basically they're losing a little bit of money, but they're really not. And then we go from there. So FMAC, and on this one, let's see if it pulls it up. Oh, it does. Awesome. So looking at the chart on this one, so if you pull up FMAC just literally on a month chart, it'll pull it up. And I need to pull up mine. There we go. So on the 11th, we had a huge drop. So it was chilling at about $10, and then we had a huge drop, and it went down to low of $7.91. And then, of course, it bounces. Like these are going to bounce. But then for the most part, it'll kind of hang out below for a few days. And then when it opens as the new ticker, it opens below that $10. So what happens before it switches tickers? So from the SPAC to DSPAC is actually what I'm paying attention to on the redemption. Now, as far as the percentages, but
if FMAC DSPAC'd into STRY, why was STRY? Why are they showing us the chart here for the 329.
So unfortunately, when a lot of them, it's kind of a hit or miss. So some platforms will keep it all together and some platforms split it, which is the reason that we track both the SPAC and the DSPAC tickers. Like if you look in my tracker, I've got both of them because some of them you can pull up and it shows the entire time that from the SPAC to the DSPAC. And on others, they're like,
like
oh, just kidding.
FRGE, they were consistent with this
Yeah,
one.
exactly. Some of them they are, and some of them they're like, oh, just kidding. So, and FRGE was MOTV. So,
Right. But we didn't see any big dip. I mean, we saw
right.
no big dip here, and then it just, blew up, and now it's blowing up even more.
Exactly. So with these, when you're playing these, if it goes out the gates and it just keeps walking, that tells me it has a low redemption. So a lot of people stayed in it. There's, a lot of the originals are in it. They want to make their money versus when they have the high redemption. So a lot of them got out. They've got to adjust and it's going to go down. But anybody who's still in it, if they can sell, they want to get rid of them. Now, a lot of these still have the 6-month lockup, but it's just like anything else where the less than 5% holders, they can sell. They're not under any actual rule. So as soon as it lists, they're out of their technical contract, whatever, and they can make their money. So with FRGE right now, that is what's happening. They had, everybody basically stayed in. There was a low redemption on it. They were happy. They have, faith in the company, unlike me. And so it's running. Now, when these happen, I mean, we've seen them just absolutely go crazy. We've seen a couple of them up to 100. But you have to keep in mind. And yeah, exactly. With any of them, though, they're going to come back down.
Right.
DWAC was one of the few that actually held. Like they got up to 100 and then they kind of just chilled within that range. Majority of them don't do that because of the lockups. So FRGE, who knows, that might go to 100, but it can also come right back down because they've had plenty of time to dump into this. I mean, they've had what, three or 4 days to dump into it. One sec. Sorry, I'm trying to drink herbal tea to clear out everything. So another one, this is a longer term one, TMC. And that has been moving the last couple days, but they had a year lockup on it. So just like our IPO lockups, like this chart is death, but that's what majority of them look like. It's just a little bit longer term.
So I remember this was one of those kind of early in the cycle of people starting to play the low float redemption, calling out a squeeze type of play. And this one was in a 10, popped up to a halt. They halted a couple times, and this was kind of like the big day where you could get paid.
Yeah.
And then people were like,
get out.
This company is like a big boat that scrapes rocks off the ocean for...
It's a total scam.
People said, this is ridiculous. So it fell down and fell down and fell down and bottomed out here. January, that it didn't bottom again hard here is sort of surprises me. This is when a lot of stocks dropped on the Ukrainian, the Russian invasion of Ukraine. Then it did back off, and then people said, oh, wait a minute, with Russia getting sanctions, it's, where are we going to get these rare earth minerals from? And this is definitely going to the moon. Anyway, went up, got shorted back down. Then the Fed announcement yesterday kind of picked it up off of, what looks like kind of rebounding anyway.
Right.
And now it's along with LITM, which was another one we were watching yesterday.
Yesterday it was a simp to LITM.
I think anything rare earth, related is gonna. Wasn't just simp. It was. I think this was, a pretty low float to begin with, low float IPO. That everything that earth with rare earth. I think it was the more mainstream company. I forget the name. Someone posted it yesterday in your chat. That was sort of the leader in the lithium LAC or something.
Ooh. Hey guys, I know you all are listening. What was the
That's
ticker
this one.
yesterday for lithium?
LAC.
There you go.
And you see it ran hard, and I think the rest were kind of people go, oh, what else? I mean, that's very strong open right there. And people said, well, what else is what else is going to benefit from lithium? And the recent low float IPOs. We've talked about this before. How when there's a kind of a headline that affects a market segment, that the low float IPOs in that segment or any recent IPOs in that segment will get attention. So LITM, that bounced on the same news, 7 to 10. And anything that was down, before it hit, it had come down already. It was kind of dropping off, so it was already kind of poised for a bit of a rebound. I think this was one of those $5 IPOs. Did a pretty good move off the debut. I think so it priced at 5, opened at 11, and ran up to 18. You have to expect it not to hold up there. So you take your profits and say thank you and get out of town. But keep these on our radar, and when they drop under, especially under the IPO price, you start thinking about whether it's still a speculative play. They haven't started mining operations yet, but they are moving towards it. So keep this in your mental memory bank. And when
they also have a lockup coming up.
Okay, so on top of would you like to explain the
yes,
the
absolutely
expiration date?
Yes. All right. So the lockup period expiration, obviously, I used to call it something else, and then we streamlined it with the LPX and the QPX, so the quiet period expiration and lockup period expiration. And with the lockups, we've got a lot of rules that go with it. So you have your general rule, which is a 90-day, it's rule 701, and all of them have that. Like, it's just across the board. Anybody less than 5% can sell within the first, or after the first 90 days, they can sell within that time. So the majority of the tickers have a 180-day lockup, and that's under Rule 144. So that's going to be your underwriters, most of their directors and officers, unless otherwise stated. Some of them do have a year, but for the most part, we've got a 6-month lockup on all of the new tickers. So your DSPACs and your IPOs, and then a lot of the uplists also. So when we have that, it's going to have the initial open where they can run the over allotment. Anybody that bought, pre-IPO that's less than 5%, they can sell. Any of the initial seed have that, within the 90 days. And then after that, it's boring and just kind of chills. So that's why we see these drop. That consolidation, those lows, that reversal off low is what I like to get into because I buy reversals. And when they start doing the reversal, it's generally within about 60 days of these lockups. And honestly, I'm not going to buy them more than that for the most part, unless they're just stupid low. We've got a couple of them, VGFC, we had Kaval, KAVL, we had IFBD that were like 60 cents, 40 cents. I'm definitely going to buy that. That's kind of a no-brainer because we know what they have to do. I'll sit in those a little bit longer. But for the most part, I'm waiting for the consolidation and the reversal. So LITM has a May 18th lockup expiration, and 97% of their shares are in lockup, which makes it an extremely low float right now until that 180 days. So that's part of the reason they did keep the price up. Their low for the 52-week low was 424. A lot of these we've been seeing in the dollars, but because it was so low float, it did hold up a little bit higher. And then right now,
arguably being lithium play. I mean, I know you don't pay attention. Ali literally plays. I mean, it's is a tribute to how well her system of just tracking, lockup period, shares out, shares locked up, expiration date, how well it works. She knows. She doesn't even need to really bother about researching what the company is, who the directors are, what their revenues are, any of that stuff. There's just been such consistency in the fact that companies, especially these low float, low dollar I try to keep things a little bit more PG around here, but fairly enough, calling them shitcos is not an exaggeration. That these companies do not, it doesn't matter so much what do they do. I believe that the fact that they're in lithium, and lithium is a kind of a buzzword these days. Anything EV, battery charging related, I think that's what kept us from dropping out to below 4 and hitting that kind of like point of zero interest. But that's obviously debatable. But what you're saying, Ali, is that there's about 12 million shares under lockup.
Yeah, about. So they've got an outstanding of 16.7 million, and then technically their float at the IPO would have been 3.2 million tradable shares, but a lot of those were still under the lockup because these couple entities own 97% of their previous. So if you look at this at face value, not even looking at, how much a single person owns, because I do try to avoid having that bias. We've got a 3.2 million float with a 6-month lockup just across the board. Well, we know 3.2 million, that's a low float. So that is from what I see and from what I track, that's the reason that we've kept it low, or kept it up on the low float side, and it hasn't just died to 1. Now, if you look at the sector, yeah, absolutely. Lithium keeps being thrown out there. Everybody's, being told to buy these $50,000 electric vehicles, and that's unrealistic. But hey, that's the current, motive of everybody. And not everybody, but that's the current motive to make money on our government side. But yeah, there's a lot of different things, and there's a lot of different ways you can look at this. And quite honestly, all of them are correct. I always encourage everybody to look at all angles, read everything, because if you put it all together, it's the big picture. Like, that is your puzzle put together. So yes, I look at one facet of what's going on, and that statistically works perfectly for me. But on the other side of it, yeah, it's lithium. We've got, electric vehicles being pushed right now. We have, the whole global shift that's going on with, gas to electric, and this follows perfect into it. So it depends on how you want to look at it. But on the other side of that, I do not believe any of the fluff that any of these companies are pushing. I honestly, a lot of the companies, I couldn't even tell you, other than their name, what they do.
Even with the ticker LITM.
I'm pretty sure that's lithium.
Yeah.
And there's a lot of them. There's a lot of them that are like, biotech and medical imaging and, communications. So those kind of give it away, obviously. But for the most part, I just don't care, because I look at statistics and I look at, what pricing, what shares, and the lockup. That's literally what I track. Excuse me, sorry, as far as statistics go, and that works. One sec, I gotta get water.
Sure, no problem. While you do that, I'm going to check on some of the IPOs from last week, mainly LCFY. We've got Lockup, and I'm not sure and
that was a fun play.
Yeah. So Lockup worked out. It was definitely this kind of rip to dip play that materialized a little bit earlier than we often see these run. This one on day 1, so we all kind of knew to stay out of the debut. There was this kind of initial dip to rebound play. We saw that in I think it was one of the ones that we traded together, Ali, with MTech, yeah. And that was so obvious because we saw the sell side imbalance at the IPO price, and it was such a heavy sell side that in the price, or as price below the debuted below the IPO price, I believe. And it was, I think we saw it at like $3 indication price with a heavy sell side imbalance. We've set our buy in at, like, I think Ali caught it at 271. I caught it at 275. Halted down, rebounded up, sold on the rebound up, and then it dropped out from there. It did have a day 2 rally, so just like this one, this has been a very common setup that we've seen. It did have a day 2 rally, so just like this one, this has been a very common setup that we've seen. It did have a day 2 rally, so just like this one, this has been a very common setup that we've seen. It did have a day 2 rally, so just like this one, this has been a very common setup that we've seen. The free float on LCFY is now 20 million shares, which is something that we discussed in the S1. It said that they would, or F1, that they would be able to sell more shares prior to the lockup period if they felt like it. And it looks like they felt like it because, when it ran above, this had shares and warrants. So with the shares and warrants, when it did make a run, the insiders who were holding ran up to 450. You can see 2 million shares were sold on that volume spike, 600,000. So we had 3.5, almost 4 million shares dumped. Almost like 5 or 6 million shares all dumped in that rally. So the setup here is pretty similar to what I think we'll be looking for today. With RVSN, I don't think a lot of people are too excited about owning this company, right now. And a lot of anyone who did get kind of stuck with IPO shares or got sort of roped into buying the IPO shares, probably will dump them at the first sign of not taking a loss. So what happens here, at GS Capital, they've had a lot of, they kind of specialize in these crapcos. Feels a little bit less, a little bit more family friendly here. But this is one of these underwriters. They've done a lot of them. They have run quite, a bunch of them have run pretty hard. They've done some. If we can look up their. I like to check out the transactions of these companies because it'll give you a sense of what pond you are fishing in. There's MTech. Hey, that's the one we played. VCLN, that ran pretty hard off the debut as well. That one had a little bit more staying power. That was it's like an electric, electric kind of theme. Electric off-road vehicles. It started out, it was a $5 debut, opened at 9, ran to 15, consolidated, rebounded off 7. And then they had some news pretty quickly that ran it up to, nearly $18. So if you bought the $5 IPO there and you held it, great. But if you played day one, I would have a hard time trying to pick the bottom off at 6 or 7 because eventually
it's going to $1.
Yeah. Ali, do you have any info on when their LPX is, or
on who?
Sure, the warrants in there. So Ali has.
What's the ticker?
VLCN.
2 seconds.
Ali has an insane amount of data that she has analyzed. So it's not that she just came up with this concept.
So their 90-day was on January 4th. They have a 90 and a 360. So they have the 90-day general rule, and then they have a 1 year, which is October. So they will not be doing much anytime soon.
Right.
Now, keep in mind, all of them have the clause, like if they go over a certain price and, whatever, then they can adjust it with the underwriter, which we've actually seen a lot of them doing recently. But
explain that a little bit. Can you explain that a little bit?
Oh, yeah. Sorry, I didn't hear it. So if, let me give some examples. So STRN, perfect example. So that one had a pumper on it pretty much from the day it opened. It stayed over the pricing or the exercise price for most of the time. I played several waves on that. It was your basic pumper waves, not a big deal. But because of that, the company took advantage of it, of course, because they're smart and they do that. And anything that they could sell, they got the agreement with the transfer agent and their underwriter to remove the lockup. And they actually stated in the following 424 saying, we remove the lockup. We may do this again in the future, which is part of the reason I stay away from that one now, because when they did the secondary offering after they ran it and they were like, here's a new one, which wasn't effective. And no, we're totally not going to run this one for a year. And then it goes into effect the next week. Well, yeah, you can run it again. So anytime it stays over the exercise price, if these companies are smart, which they are, that's the reason they're here to make money, they can get anything literally adjusted as long as the underwriter and the transfer agent agree to do it.
Mhm.
Now, if they're going to make money,
here's that offering on January 23rd, my birthday actually. And then boom.
January 23rd, Matt's birthday. Got it.
Yeah. So here it is. Sorry, it's on the 28th, but yeah, 28th right here. Bang. Fell off going into that.
Yeah. So, and Maya is one of my girls, and she was playing it, and she actually emailed the company, and she shared the reply, and they were like, "No, we're totally not planning on using it. We don't know why this price is going down," and it's just like, this is so just yeah.
Remember that it does seem a little counterintuitive, but these companies aren't. I mean, in the long term,
they make money with the offering.
Yeah, they are raising money. That is what the stock market exists for. The stock market exists for IPOs. And people say, well, after the IPO, why does a company even care? Well, because that's not the only time they can raise money from the stock market. They can do secondary offerings. They'll have warrants out there. And that's really, that's the key to there are lockup periods. All of these things also affect why companies are using it. But the core reason that the stock market exists, it's a way, for capitalism to thrive. It is a way for companies to raise capital, to fund growth, to fund operations, to fund development. And we are along for the ride as, whether we're investors or traders, or however you want to, spin our participation in it. But it's not to make us feel good or to make us money, really. We're making money if we choose companies that, either to invest in that in the long term do well, or, understand what are the underlying kind of phenomenon that are driving prices in the short term. And that's really what IPO plays are about. That's what these LPX plays are about. And there is some, maybe less so now, but there's a third X in there, which is the QPX, and that is the quiet period expiration. Though that one has not been adhered to as much recently. Although jump in on this one.
Yeah, so the quiet period expiration actually does not apply to emerging growth companies, which is any company that made less than $1 billion in the previous year, which is pretty much every single company that we trade. We've had a couple IPOs that are, over that, and they, do not fall under the emerging growth company, but majority of what we play, they're exempt from it. So they do respect a lot of times. So there's a 10-day research, and there's a 25-day something else, and then the 40-day, which is supposed to be for anything from the company they don't do. And a lot of them do respect that, but they don't have to. Now, the QPX play that we were playing last year, that was made up from a pumper because he didn't read the rule. And he was just like, no, all of them have 40 days. And then also on MarketBeat, after all of that started happening, MarketBeat started updating and saying, here's our, blanket statement, 40-day on everything. Where before that, they had it staggered. Like there was different dates for these based on what type of company they are. So they have the 10-day or 25.
Too much research. They just put the 40-day algorithm on it.
Yeah, exactly. The 40-day algorithm works. And a lot of them just put the 6-month algorithm for the lockup. And that's cool. But that's where I come in and I do the research. So with the quiet period expiration, these companies they don't have to adhere to the rule because it doesn't apply to emerging growth companies, but a lot of them still respect it. But that's why we're not seeing these companies dropping PRs. It costs them money to do a PR, for one. And if they're not ready to run it, if it's before the lockup and they know that news isn't going to do anything in this market, a lot of times it doesn't, they're not going to be like, hey, look at us. They just kind of let it go. So if we have a pumper in the future that's like, yay, QPX is back, and they have a ton of followers, it might come back. But for the most part, what we deal with, they don't have to do it. So it's just like, I don't know. Honestly, I think it's kind of gone. We've seen some of them dropping news like 5 or 6 days in, and then you look and, oh, they didn't have a lockup. They can totally dump everything right now.
So even if it is a headline or somehow loosely correlated to QPX,
it's just
it would also be covered. It would also be covered by an LPX play, kind of.
Right.
as well. That's a good point.
Yes.
I got a question here from Liu Trong. Matt, you only play IPOs and their cycle? No, although I've started kind of coming back to that. IPOs was really what transformed my account, and started really right a little bit before COVID. And some of it was right place, right time. BYND, CRWD, those were, I think those were right before COVID. But when I started recognizing those plays, and it was LMND, I forget some of the others that were in the early days. Big Commerce was a big one for me. But I kind of like saw in the distance Snowflake and PLTR. And those were kind of ones that I felt like I really wanted to get those companies early. And Snowflake ended up being a really great IPO play. Palantir took another month or so, or took about a month before it ripped. But IPO plays, playing the debut, it was just like win after win after win. And I was starting to get really kind of crazy wins. I did hurt myself pretty badly last December. I was just way out of sorts. The war was starting. I live in Ukraine, or did until the war started. My dad was sick in the hospital. Wife was just pregnant. I just had too much going on, and made a trade that did not fit any of my rules, and took a big hit. But I'm still way, way up. So I do focus on IPOs. I think there's more volatility, and I just have watched. I played hundreds of them, and they have a pattern to them. They have a definite start time. So I don't, at the time I didn't really have to worry about the entry. But even now it's kind of like, okay, I know that today if I'm going to trade this, it's sort of like all lined up to make it very easy to schedule, and they follow very similar patterns. So if you look at like LCFY, if I pull this up and pull up MTech on 15, then I want to come back to PGRU. Hold on, write a note. If I look at MTech, and we go to the 15 minutes, and back to day one, you're going to see something very similar. All right. So MTech, these are these two. This one spiked down and recovered. It recovered a little bit more, but then it bottomed out. And this one actually bottomed out. It's, I guess, a little bit prolonged. But you see this day two open, here, and then pop, spike here, open, drop a little bit, day two spike. So what LCFY did that was a little bit different than some of the other ones that we saw, although this one, I guess, day one is not so different. This one made a more exaggerated run into the close, and I actually decided to just get out right here. One of the things Ali and I talk about is because these are kind of predicated setups, like they're repeatable, and the first one, kind of catches people off guard and sets, the people who remember from the last, maybe 6 months ago when that setup was working, maybe they caught it, and then everybody jumped in and ripped it, from a low into a high. Once that setup gets, and the examples are the SPACs. I mean, we saw it was about 6 months ago, and a bunch of the SPAC ticker changes ran hard. But then everybody starts looking for, what's the next one that's going to change? And everyone starts buying it in before the ticker change, and that means everybody's in it already. There's nobody really left to buy it, to send it, and then when not much happens, then it kind of gets sold off, and the play starts looking like it's dead. So
we also had a pumper on that one.
Okay, so the pumpers are the ones picking up shares down at the bottom here, and then ripping it.
On that exact play, though, on the merger and so it was on.
Which one are you talking about?
I'm talking about all of them. So it was on any merger and any DSPAC or SPAC to DSPAC. Okay. We had a very specific pumper and a very large room. Not going to say any of them right now, but we had. They were focusing on every one of those, and then of course when the breakup happened with that room, they went on their own, and that place stopped. and you can literally see the day the breakup happened and the play just died. So, and those are things that we track also is with the bumpers, like what are they doing? Who's controlling what? And when they stop controlling that, you can literally see specific plays die. It's kind of cool. It's kind of annoying.
So what are some of the signs? One of the things we talk about when we see a stock running is this a trading group? Is this a pumper? Is this an algo? And how do you, how are you able to kind of differentiate between which, what is affecting the run on a...
So my room kind of has a total view on all of this. We have people that specifically get the alerts for the rooms, get the alerts for tweets. Anytime anything starts moving, the very first thing I ask is who's moving it. And everybody goes, looks, and that total view, and we come back. So we are at an advantage. An individual trader that's not trading within a group or doesn't have, a lot of people with them, it's almost impossible. But between our group, we have probably 30 pumpers that we watch, and then at least like 15 rooms of the main rooms. And it's, of course, Discord, so you can just search the ticker super quick, and here we go. Now we know who's on it. But as far as the pump volume goes, if you are a single trader just staring at your screens, there's always going to be a load right before the move. So LCFY, perfect example. We had somebody loaded. I know exactly who it was. And then a tweet happened a few minutes later and it started going. Well, there was actually already an algo on it because it's a day 2 play, and that's just how they run. So day 2 will generally still have an algo on it on any of these IPOs. IPO starts to, go up a little bit. Pumpers like, ooh, look, low float. And they'll do the load. That pushes it up a little bit more. And then they tweet, hey, somebody's loading on this. Yeah, it's you. And then it goes up. The crazy thing with that is these move on day 2, a lot of them the same, even without a pumper. So you just have to watch for that volume. Now, with LCFY compared to MTech, there was no pumper on MTech on day 2. I was watching it, and I did obviously play it for the pre-market pop. And then I played day 3 on both of them for the pre-market pop again. But there is a very specific pattern the first couple days. But then just like LCFY is doing now, it'll die. And of course, I'll troll the ticker and be like, yeah, I'll buy it back in the ones. Because that's what it does on like all of them.
Do you short these?
No, unfortunately, I don't short. I'm a positive person, and I found when I try to short things, I'm looking at the negative side, and it actually my personality. It's kind of weird how that happens. And I've talked to other traders that are long trying to switch to short, and they say the same thing. They're like, yeah, I got super cranky for, while I was trying to figure it out. And I mean, it's just both sides of the trade. It's not a big deal, but just looking for what's the downside of stuff. I'm not that person yet. Eventually I will be able to play both sides, but
I also don't try to short. Okay, there was, so before we go to the next thing I wanted to talk about was, and then we'll start trying to watch the date for the debut here, is that, we see it where LCFY is here, and it kind of gets, one of the things that I'm able to, or the patterns that I believe I'm seeing, is when these debuts do drop, and my theory is that people like the trading groups and the pumpers are accumulating here. And one of the ways that you can see that is there's often several orders kind of sitting at they're kind of jockeying up the bid. They're letting one small order stay above it. I mean, it almost looks like this. And I just don't think anyone's really trying to accumulate this right now. It's just not moving fast enough. But you'll see an order for, say, 2,000 or 3,000, or 5,000 shares kind of here, and then another one down here, maybe 10 cents below it. And they don't want to pump up the price, but they're like kind of picking off whoever is selling. And it's the same order that just kind of gets moved, or it appears to be the same order is being moved adjusted just below where the bid is, not trying to catch, the ones and twosies, but when it, when it does drop down, they're trying to catch, load up some shares. And you see that throughout the day. And then when it starts running, you kind of see the algo, holding the bid and then running the ask, and that's when you'll oftentimes see these runs start. So that's one of the things I look on is the level 2. I like to see that if I'm hoping that it's going to kind of drop on day 1 and give me an opportunity to accumulate along with them. I'll usually wait for at least 2 levels to drop out. If I'm watching the 1 minutes, I'm looking for one of the things is if you're trying to play this kind of dip and rip play on the debut, it's very tempting to see this first dip, and you don't have all this hindsight to look at. You just see this. You see this hard drop. You're kind of like, all right, it's dropping. And you start thinking like, oh, is this going to be the bottom? And it's kind of a bottom, but you can see where these are running, where these are touching up. There's a lot of, this is our 1 minute candles. If you got in at say 280, you're not going to be able to do much of a stop loss here. There's a pretty big spread in the bid and ask, so you can maybe try to get out with 310. But to me, the ideal play on any of these is to be able to have a trailing stop loss, which is unless you're in after hours. But this, to me, this first dip is not really where I want to start a big position. I might take, let's say my target is like 1,000 shares. I might take like 200 shares right here. And if it gets up here and I can kind of pinch in a stop loss, I might do that. But I'm not really expecting this to be the run. So what I'm looking for is usually this kind of like second level drop. So that's a big knife right there. That first knife, oftentimes we'll see that baseline here, but that's not really an accumulation setup to me on 1 minute candles. This would be a very obvious one. And I did add at 235. So this base here, that's a good time to start. If it comes up a little and starts dropping again, I had another entry at 222. I wish I'd made it 225. I would have gotten filled there, but I was kind of walking away from my phone and letting it sit, and I just let it sit. And then all of a sudden it kind of ripped in the middle of the day, which was a lot of times we'll see that spike to VWAP and then fall off again. So I sold some shares. I sold a position in my smaller account there. I'd play that account much more conservatively, and I had bought in at 240. So getting out of, there was a halt here. Right there. The halt opened at $3. So I was in at 240, out at $3, and just said, you know what, I'll sell out of the halt. If I see 2 halts, so it then ripped into, or kind of ran into the end of the day and then ripped up into a halt with 8 minutes left. And I said, you know what, I'm just gonna, which means it's gonna stay halted usually till the, market close. At that point, I said, you know what, I'm just gonna get out here. I don't know what it's gonna do on day 2. My expectation was that it was going to fall off there. And that I was going to accumulate more at the end of the day. When I don't see that, and my hypothesis is now, broken. Even if the trade is working, it's not what I was hoping for. I'm given an opportunity to take a nice win here. I'm going to go ahead and do that. Could have held on a little bit more, sure. Could I have loaded up again here? Well, I wasn't at my desk, but that day 2 pop, you kind of expect that it's going to come. This is not something you always see. Times you'll just see it open and run, but a lot of times you do see that. So when you're loading up, I think you want to start with this, like if you're going for 1,000 shares and you want to add 200 there, okay, you're not going to get hurt that bad. You can add another 200 there, but save your bigger loads for once you really see that that bottom out. If it does run, okay, well you didn't overload and it didn't give you it wasn't as big of a win opportunity as you thought. I heard a great analogy on Twitter. I forget who it was. Otherwise, I'd give them credit for it. But what they said was, setting yourself up for trades and managing risk on the downside might mean that your wins, seem smaller. But what you're really trying to do is find those, put yourself in position to win, when you do catch the real bottom and get a real rip. And it's a bit like fishing. You're going to fish, you're going to pull a bunch of fish out, and a lot of times you're just going to pull out like a small or normal time fish, but that's not that's not what you're going to really feed your family with, or bulk up your portfolio with, but you do that for the discipline. And then, once in a while you do pull a big fish out of the water, And that's what it feels like in a lot of these trades. It's like I'm trying to manage the downside risk. I'm trying to put myself in a position. This wasn't a huge win for me from here to here, but it was it was a nice nice fish to pull out of the boat and add to the basket. So we've gone a little bit over here, and we are now seeing the RVSN. RVSN on my computer here is showing a reference of 294. Let me just bounce back and forth a little bit. So now 250. So this IPO priced at 413. So we were way down. There is a buy side imbalance here of okay, and there's 85 shares that aren't balanced. 100,000 shares. That's a pretty small opening debut. Then again, this is a pretty small float. This is kind of interesting. I'm looking over at the buy side here. I don't mean a whole lot, except that there are some orders in, and at 245, all the stuff's going to get filled. So if you do want to buy in on the debut, now it's at 270. It's come up a little bit, and so people are kind of interested in this. It's a pretty low number to start with. I kind of feel like maybe it's time to give an IPO debut a shot. I'm not going to go with anything big. I just want to maybe 100 shares just for the fun of it. Maybe 200. Okay, well, now we see the sell side imbalance at 314 and 18,000 shares. So there's 18,000 shares that are being offered for sale. Basically, people saying, I'm willing to sell it for this much. And then they drop it to 290. I like it less. Now I see these sell side imbalances. Now I feel like I'm never going to buy on a debut if the sell side imbalance is kind of the prevalent imbalance side. So you want to, the ones that have always run will show buy side, they'll bring it up, and then, show a sell side, bring it back down, bring it up a little, and you won't see sell side all that much. And for there really to be strength in a debut, it's got to be priced above the, above the indication price. Ali, you have any thoughts on a debut trade here? You sit and watch it, see what it does.
I'm going to watch it, but I'm probably just going to wait for the dip reversal. And I probably shouldn't say that's on a recording, but it's okay. Generally, from where it opens, I look for a 10% drop.
Yeah.
So I did that on MTech, and it ended up working perfectly. And I mean, it doesn't always work perfectly, but I look for a 10%. And sometimes I'll wait for the reversal. Sometimes I'll just chance it. And of course, I'm willing to stop out and I'm willing to take the loss on. I don't care. But yeah, so I'm going to look for that 10% ish drop.
So are you going to set a limit order at 10% off 290?
As soon as I can. Yeah, I can't set it yet, but yeah, once it opens, I'll do it.
You can't set it? You can't set a limit order?
No, it's not. So I just tried and it said it's not available yet.
Okay, so this is a bit. What desk are you on?
I'm on Webull.
Okay.
Here's the thing: I'm on the app on Apple, so it's an older version, and I refuse to upgrade on it. So that might be why. But the second it opens, I'm able to trade it, and I do have my older laptop up also, just in case. It's like, no, you still can't.
I'm going to go ahead and check. I believe that Webull was selling. Yeah, Webull did have this for sale. So when a platform has it, is offering it, they cannot let people buy it until right before it goes live, basically.
Okay, so that's probably why I'm getting the error on it, which is fine.
Okay. Bye.
I do low anxiety trades, so
I'm
going to wait until it does what I want it to do anyway.
Let me buy it. Or put in an order on the Android app.
Okay, so I'm going to go ahead and open up my older laptop. Now I have 3 laptops sitting on my desk.
Okay.
I might be ridiculous.
So a 10% dip would be 260. So I am going to do the 260. 260.01. I'm going to try 262. So So that's a 289. So yeah, I will be, if I am trying to buy the debut, I'm going to set a limit order, and I'm basically, okay, now they've got $3 with the buy side imbalance. Little bit, I mean, it's still a very weak, but the thing you have to consider is the RVSNW. Okay, so the bids on the warrants are at 61 cents. So the IPO at 304. I mean, they have been showing buy side imbalance for a lot of this. It definitely could drop. This is the first sort of strong setup. These are kind of big numbers up here, up at the 4 and 5. Doesn't really mean that there's buyers willing to pay that. I still think that until we see an IPO that rips up, then I can't justify a big order there. 310, $3 feels like a little bit more strength than we've seen in some of the other debuts recently. Not just a complete 125,000 shares, not a complete stink fest here. 293. Okay. Hey Harry, how's it going? JR, we got a bunch of people joining us here. Welcome to the party, guys. And if you guys want to share your thoughts, go ahead and throw them in the chat. The open here is stronger than some of the ones that we've seen before, and it's way down. So I'm kind of tempted to try a little bit of a not a full 10% dip and try to undercut a little bit, but I think I'm just sort of bored of not having IPOs to play, which is generally not a great look for a reason to make a trade. But
see, and I'm on the other side of that. We have a ton of lockups right now, so I'm trying to manage being in 25 positions. So.
Yeah. So I use a 50% open down from the pricing buy. Okay, so the pricing was at 413. That would be 206 to buy in. I think for a swing trade, right off the debut, we're probably not going to see. I mean, it's impossible for it to drop 50% without halting. Doesn't mean it can't halt and then open way further down. So I shouldn't say impossible, but we're seeing a sell side imbalance now at 314. I think I'm just not going to get myself tied up in anything right now on this one. I do feel like there's a trade tomorrow, which is XPON. It's priced a little bit higher, but it's lithium ion batteries, and it's 2.14 million share float. That one seems interesting to me. Okay, I think we are live.
Yes, we are live. All right, so opening candle was 314.
Okay, there's something I have to do to make this work.
So we have 290.
Okay. Better if I switch to this.
Just like I'm going to tell the room at open in the morning, everybody take a deep breath and just watch it for a second. There's no reason to jump in.
Okay. So it did drop to 290. We can see that there's a pretty big spread. So it's kind of trying to figure out what to do. There are sellers at $3 kind of trying to get out. There's a pretty big shelf there at 290. Those can fall pretty fast, but a lot of times the underwriter will protect a certain price level, and that could be what we're seeing here. If it breaks through that, it's going to drop pretty hard. It's being chewed through right now, so looks like IPO sellers starting to dump. My guess is that just drops a bit more. I'm going to get out of the 15-minute and look at the 1-minute candle. Some of the other indicators that I look at are the RSI 14. When this drops below 30, that means it's heavily oversold. I will often wait until this kind of stabilizes and at least comes back towards or to 30 before I think that this might be in a reverse position. But I'm also watching this level too. If I start seeing if the volume starts to, so we had 185,000 shares in the first minute, 36,000 shares so far in the second minute, and things are still kind of falling off. We don't have buyers accumulating. I said 262 was where I thought about maybe taking a dip entry, but at this point, and here's a pretty big wall, buy wall down at 260. So that could be kind of the first reversal. But I also want to look over here and see, well, what is the, how far could this reverse before it's really going to see resistance? And certainly once it gets back up to the debut price of $3, they're putting it up at 325, 263 might have been off by a cent if that holds. Kind of the opening drop often doesn't go much longer than 2 or 3 minutes before we get some kind of bounce back. So question is, does the bounce back actually get back to 3? Does it not? And we're still seeing the wall here at 260 hold. So I tend to think that now we've had a lot of kind of the initial sellers have kind of evacuated the burning building, and the dumpster fire may have abated a little bit. So we're already way down below the IPO price at 413. So this might be a time to watch for some kind of strength. If I start seeing buy orders jockey above each other a little bit, and this ask isn't coming down, this may be time to take that kind of initial small starter play, which can turn into a little win, or not hurt you too bad if you need to average down. So I might say I still don't want to go too much above what I'm seeing here. Volume in the last minute dropped down, so 73, 80. And the volume's still around, but I'm not seeing the sellers really come down to meet the buyers. So I might try to say, and now we see that bid is trying to come up a little bit. So still haven't pulled the trigger on anything yet. 271, try to pick off if somebody dumps into that. But the reversals can come pretty fast, and this might already be the little bottom before it hits it. So what I kind of expect this to do is to get a little rally here up to about 3, maybe peek its head over $3, and then we'll have another round of people trying to sell off. But not a setup where I feel particularly confident in making any kind of big position. Ali, where are you at in this?
I have a starter at 266.
Nice, you picked off that bottom play. All right, it's wanting to bottom out a little bit more. I'm afraid it's going to drop through 260, and I will probably try to play at that. All right, 262. Go back to the top.
So right now I'm looking, so we've got a couple different things going on. We've got the 260, we've got 25,000 block on it. And I'm looking at that on Webull and on Street Smart Edge. So that is matching. With that, my stop loss is at 259. So if it breaks 259, then I'll stop out on it. But then I have a rebuy at 251. So that's just how I stagger things. If it hits it, cool. If not, then I'll adjust, obviously. But right now, just based on the 260 looking support, and it could break right through that, not a big deal. But just because of that, that was why I went ahead and got in. Also, I like anything that goes with 3s. So 66 obviously is a 3 number. I'm a weirdo. It's fine.
That's interesting. Because I'll ladder in a trade. I'll put one in for 251 as well, at a little bit higher than my 262. So if this does get dumped down, but I don't do what you do with the stop loss, which is not a bad idea. And something I'll certainly consider. It looks like my reverse here. That you stop out of the first order, and then if it drops, you ladder in. I mean, the only risk there is if it reverses in between your two positions, which doesn't seem like a highly likely scenario.
That is one thing I love about Webull. You can put in your manual
Take order.
information, and it just does it automatically for you after that. And so, and then of course I can adjust, but.
All right. Well, the sellers, there's not a lot of sellers like trying to blow their shares out right now.
The buy side is picking up.
Yeah, the buy side is picking up. So I will sometimes or often kind of adjust my strategy accordingly. Haven't seen any kind of run yet, so seems like we're due for something. That guy did not yet. The dog's out yet. So we also have to remember that there are day traders who have bought in here that are going to try to, dump their bags as well if they see that they didn't get the rip they wanted. But otherwise, we're looking at this is kind of the thing that makes IPOs a little more predictable. You don't usually have too many short sellers getting involved with this. So I bought, especially like right now, short sellers usually wait to see volume die out before they try to attack something like this.
I don't think
a lot of times there
aren't
even shares available to short. So we could be seeing, we're not seeing a lot of strength in this, but here's a little bit of a run. At some point, there's just nobody who's really trying to dump their shares anymore, sell their shares anymore. And everybody that did sell, or everybody that's in this, bought down, isn't so deep that they are necessarily trying to run for the exits yet. So a reversal up to about 3 seems pretty likely. 295 VWAP is the average price at which people have paid for this. So we're getting a run. It would surprise me if we got more than a run into a halt. If this halts at 10%, you're looking at like maybe to 320. But we're stringing together some green candles, still approaching VWAP. Volume's starting to trail off a little bit. Not quite as much action as we used to see in a lot of these. It used to be a halt one way or another almost for sure for something with this low of a float. There goes a bit of a reversal. And now I'm in for 100 shares, 271. 265, that was my other order. I gotta go back. Managing orders can be frustrating if your account doesn't move fast enough. But 275, bid ask, 262 is my other order. So I'm gonna stay in. Allie, how much time do you have today?
All day. Okay. We don't leave to Vegas until like first thing tomorrow morning, so I'm here all day.
All right, I'm going to trade this for another probably 10 minutes, but can leave this on if you want to run this while I walk the dogs, and then can come back. You want to stay on this, or do you want to go do something else?
I don't think it's going to do a whole lot after this, honestly.
Okay, so let's get it till like.
This afternoon, I'll definitely be looking, like right now, excuse me, I'm looking probably for like 295 max 3, and I've got sell orders already. I've only got a lotto on it. But this afternoon, when it's probably going to do a wave, and then they'll come down. And on these, I normally look for like exactly how LCFY did the first day where it came way down. That's what I look for. MTech did the same thing on the first day where it came way down. That's where I'm looking at the swing for that day 2 pop, the pre-market 4 a.m. pop. Funny enough, that's where I make most of my money is, 4:30 in the morning. I get that, 1:30 for me. I get the notification that I sold. And so those, getting in on the lows and then just setting orders, even 50 to 70 cents just at the next dollar mark. I make a ridiculous amount of money on that, and I'm half asleep. I'm like, oh, cool, it's sold. And I go right back to sleep. So that for me is the main play on the day ones into that day 2 pop. And then recently, a lot of them have been having the day 3 pop also. But you're not going to hold through that. So you're going to get in, sell into the first pop, day 2, wait for it to go low again, because a lot of the day 2s are lower. And then same thing, try to get in on the low reversal, and then day 3. And after the day 3 pop, a lot of times these just kind of die out for a little bit.
I think that's about right. So if you did get in at, any of these dips 265 to 270, and you want to kind of just make sure you don't lose money on this, especially if you're kind of early in, like this one of maybe one of the first IPOs, or you're still kind of, you want to protect your downside. There's nothing wrong with letting it walk up a little bit and then putting in a stop loss, and then raising that stop loss, because we're at a position right here where my guess is that it either drops off or there's a chance maybe it double bottoms, and or maybe we're looking at a little bit of a double bottom that then runs. But more often than not, this we've seen the kind of like the initial dip, the touch up to VWAP, or failed kind of attempt to regain VWAP, and more often than not, these really do just fall off. So I have for where I'm in at my position at 271. I'm not like super thrilled about it. So like I didn't catch a run, for example. So I don't mind putting a stop back at 271 right now, if it'll let me. And that way, it's kind of like, okay, well, if it does run, great, and if it doesn't run, I think it's going to drop, and then I'll leave my 262 order in and just let that get filled if we see that drop down to 262. But this is kind of looking more like it's going to drop off to, and eventually go down to like 240 and even then I almost feel like just
222.
There we go.
I just adjusted my stop loss up to my entry, so it's at 266 now.
Right.
So once it starts consolidating, I'll generally adjust it so that I'm not actually taking a scratch on it. It's just like in and out. Okay, cool. No harm, no foul.
Okay, so it just dropped to 269, and I got stopped out at 270. So I took a $1 loss on 100 shares. Didn't really get to build a position. Didn't really rip off that bounce. It's always really saying, hey, well, if it just turns around right away, I'll catch a nice, my groceries will get paid for the day. What I'm really looking at is for when IPOs, when they do get to a setup, or when we do get into a hot market and we get some really hot IPOs, then I'll be looking to, do more of the trades where I was taking, full positions right on the debut and just catching we don't even have any mainstream IPOs right now. I think when Intel's, goes through with Mobileye, that could be a very hot IPO. We have some others, that are companies that are, have indicated that they want to IPO this year, but the market conditions have just been so terrible that nobody's dared to dip their toes in the water. When the market gets to that point, the first IPOs that come, mainstream IPOs that come to the market should be pretty good buying opportunities, even to hold for a little bit, because we've seen in a cold market, they can't command the same debut premium. They can't command the same initial price. So we're getting better value as as public kind of retail than we will when the market's just blazing hot. I mean, when February 2021, we had IPOs debuting with just insane, debut premiums. We had things like, it was just became normal to get for retail to pay 80% what the insiders had paid for the IPOs. So I remember Bumble was like $39 or something, and it debuted at like $76. We had Snowflake priced at 120 and then opened at like 245. It ran up to 320 before it fell back off. But, we just, that was sort of at the height of the insanity. And now we're seeing IPOs. We haven't seen an IPO really run off the debut since I think our HOUR was the first one of the year. The rest of, there are some, there were some that just like TKLF that just debuted at, an insane price and then dropped off. Same thing with Akonda. But those are, sort of the low float, manipulated. Don't do that to yourself. To me, don't do that to yourself again. But when they debut at like an insane, if it's a low float shitco, you don't play the debut like that. You only do that if it's a stealth IPO setup and you think that maybe it's worth taking a little bit of a lotto play. And even at that, I think like the last one we really saw was that gave retail a chance to get in was SOPA, SOPA.
That was a good one.
And that one, I missed the entry one. That was like 50 cents because we both shut off the debut pricing like 2 minutes before it went live for some reason. Well, typical stealth IPO. But that one ripped from like 13.55 or something to 30 something or 40, I forget, but it was insane. And we saw that used to be kind of normal. I mean, that was TIRX, that was CPOP, that was what was that one? UTME. Yeah. So those were fun. That was kind of like, just felt like every Friday when we had those stealth IPOs, I was just making 5 figures off a trade. It was insane. And now
I did stop out on RVSN. Okay. So because of rules, it should run now. So you're all welcome for my sacrifice. That's how it always works. We joke about that in the room. They'll actually buy my cells when I stop out of stuff because rules, it's going to run. Convinced we're living in a simulation. I wanted to talk about before we get off. So we've got a couple OTC uplists coming up. We have QSAM and then we have IVDA.
Is QSAM tomorrow?
Yeah. It's supposed to be tomorrow, but it's already been postponed 3 times. So who knows? They had the 20-day after the reverse split, which has already happened, and the ticker hasn't changed yet. So who knows? And then IVDA is supposed to be tomorrow also. IVDA right now is dropping off. And as everybody in my room knows, and you're in my room, so I had staggered orders. All of them have filled at this point. So
where is it now? 84. I'm in on
it's at 81 right this second. So, and yes, a couple of those orders that you see on the screen are mine. So with that, it's supposed to debut at 968. There's a 1-for-8 reverse split. So you do the math on it. And if you're buying it right now as an OTC, okay, this is not a buy, you guys. I know my room's going to be like, wait, should I buy now? And everybody listening, this is a watch the price action for the day. Don't go get slap happy. I have literally been sitting on the bid on this and I just had it staggered. So it would just keep going down on the bid. So my current average is now 84.1 on this one. And when it does the 1-for-8, that tells me my average is going to be below the debut. So that's the only reason I'm doing it. I generally don't buy OTC uplists. I get charged on Street Smart Edge. It's $6.95 a trade. And then I get charged on, I still haven't figured out exactly how much it is on IB. They said it's 3 cents, but ended up being like 1.3 cents. So I don't know. But this is a very specific situation. And it's only because it's going to be so low float once it lists. Now, QSAM is not going to be as low float, and watch, that'll be the one that goes crazy just because I said that. But both of them very different situations. So when you're getting in the OTC uplist, a lot of them open, because remember, they're going to open at 4 a.m. They just do the ticker change. The problem with that is they have to change the CUSIP, and a lot of these brokers don't actually switch it over until 9 a.m., which means when this first changes, a lot of brokers are not going to allow trading until basically market opens. I think TDA does it by like 8 o'clock. Webull is like 9 a.m. IB is generally about 5 a.m., sometimes 6. But there's not going to be a lot of trading on this the first couple hours because nobody really can unless they're already in it, and then they get to watch it go up. And like with Street Smart Edge, I can't sell until 7 because they're, they have restricted hours. So if this pops at 4 o'clock, I'm going to be like, cool. Like there's nothing I can do. So when you're looking at these, you really have to consider risk reward on it. But because of the split happening on it, I see the benefit in buying before and just paying the fees on it. But it's a very specific situation. Most of them, I would not do that.
Yeah, I'm in on that one too.
Yeah.
Not a huge money order, but yeah. And just update, I got filled at 262 on RVSN. I put in a stop loss at 259. There, that's right below this kind of huge buy wall at 260. And I took a little bit more than I took on my first play because I'm, figure it's lower risk and higher reward. So I picked off the bottom of the where it's at right now. That is just above 10% from the debut, and got that, I guess, perfectly if it rebounds from here. I just don't feel like these. I mean, we haven't really seen one for a while that either didn't just run right here off the first reversal or kind of trail off and fall. So this could be, I mean, if you zoom out in the future, if this does rip, this will look a lot flatter. And when it falls, either way that it runs from here, this is going to look a lot flatter in retrospect. Now it looks choppy because we're only looking at a 20-cent swing. Okay, there's a dip down to 260 and bouncing back up. But that 260 level looks like it's kind of getting hammered, and there we go. I got stopped out. My stop out was at 256. So this is something you want to think about. You're not, just because you put your stop loss at 259 doesn't mean it's necessarily going to fill at 259. There is a thing called slippage. So I lost 3 cents times $200 or 200 shares, which is not going to hurt me, but I don't like losing on principle.
So my next
$6. Yeah.
My next orders on this are in the 240s. And that would be a starter in the 240s. And then of course I did your, dental order, which is actually 222 for me, not 230.
Okay. 230,
but
starting to see the dentist. Now it's getting pushed.
Now it's getting some momentum, but look at the time of the day, and the lows are generally, and this is all of them, I get some of my best fills about 1 o'clock market time. Okay. So a lot of the times I'll just throw orders in and I'll walk away. I'll go do lunch, whatever. And then I'll get, the message on my phone like, hey, you filled. Cool. Yeah. So with this one, I'm going to treat it exactly the same way. It's a low anxiety play, and I have my orders staggered. So if the 240 fills, cool. If the 222 fills, cool. Obviously my 222 order is bigger. And then I have a stop loss right below that at 218, because if it goes through 220, it's going to keep going. It'll hit most people will put either dimes, quarters, or dollars is where their stop losses are, which I don't understand, but okay. So I'll stagger just above or below, depending on where I think it's going to fall through.
Yeah. And I think that at this point we see that the chart is weak. The chance of a monster rally is low. Now is not where I would accumulate. Even if it baselines for a while here in the 260, 270 range, I still feel like it has another leg down. That next leg down is probably, like Ali said, 240, although we do have a baseline at 250. We saw how that 260 level dropped pretty hard and suddenly. And that's what happens is people come in here and they decide, hey, I'm in for this is not for people who are buying allocations from a trading desk. They will get kind of not bullied, but we saw GS has some that do run, so their buyers know that, hey, if I want to get an allocation on a big, on the good ones, I'm going to have to buy the crappy ones too, or they're not going to give me, an allocation. That's how the brokerages who represent these IPOs work. So they're going to say, okay, you got to take 20,000 shares of this if you want to be on the next one. And they're kind of stuck in it. And they've got the warrants, but they paid $413 for this plus the warrant. They may just say, screw it, I'm out of this. And a lot of that probably happened right up here. Especially this was available for Webull. I think there were a lot of retail buyers sort of like buy those and say, well, some of these really debut at ridiculous premiums, and that's where I make my money, and the others I just kind of cut for a loss, and that's life. But this is looking like it's got downward trajectory on it. Like Ali said, walk away from it for a little while, or just set your stop losses and check at the end of the day. It's a little bit like setting your lines, seeing if you got any, setting your bait traps, and seeing if the fish came in at the end of the day, rather than sitting around trying to to jockey and play these. If I was doing that, I mean, this isn't the weakest. This isn't Vine. Vine just was a complete nosedive. But this company is not profitable. I mean, they do have the potential for catalysts on the future. They're pre, they're pre-revenue right now. So all they have to do is announce a big contract with a major railway, and this thing will blow up. I expect that to kind of be in the not so distant future. But in the meantime, if I miss out on getting in on this, I'm okay with that. Right now, the market's not giving me any setups that are just super high conviction. And that's where that's where you're going to make your bigger money, is where you see a trade where you just believe in it so much that you could put in, a substantial amount of your buying power, your capital. And until you have those, you're kind of picking off and learning and studying and getting a feel for these charts. And these charts do move. There is consistency in how these charts set up. So I like watching these for that reason. I think I will give this about 2 more minutes or one more. I'd love to see it move one way or the other a little bit more definitively before we sign off here. But right now it's surprisingly stable. And, if you paid, let's check what the warrants are doing. That's something I haven't.
Okay, I forgot it says warrants.
Warrants have moved not very much. It's basically just
70 by 71.
Low. Yeah, 70 to 63, and that was just on the open. 63 was the bottom. Otherwise, yes, 70 to 65. 70 to 65. So 70. So we just add the warrant to the share price, and that's kind of what people paid. But if we subtract that, 413 minus 70, so 343 is kind of like the break even for for anyone who bought the IPO. So if this does get a little bit of a run, you expect kind of like 330 to 340 to be the exit point there. But all right, 270. We've got buy orders starting to pinch up here.
There it goes.
Here we go. Looking up. Boom. So the question becomes, can it get enough momentum to really hold to sustain a run over VWAP, or did it reach VWAP and die? And we'll know in a couple minutes here. But VWAP is a really strong indicator on IPO debuts. VWAP is the volume weighted average price. So in other words, this is the average price at this time of day. This is the average price that everybody who bought it on this day paid for it. So the price, like for example, over here, we're looking at the prices at 267, but all the shares that are currently, all the orders that have gone through up to this point were at 289. And especially early on, that means that we have a lot of people who bought in at 289. A lot of these are going to be IPO, shares that got sold. Some of it will be early day traders, but a lot of people are kind of, accumulating and playing. So once it hits VWAP, you're going to start seeing resistance generally. You're going to see people who, now you're at a point where more people bought it for, less than where it's at than more than, while it's under VWAP, more people bought it for higher than the current price. When it's below that, more people bought it for lower than the current price. And this doesn't really even incorporate the IPO shares, which we know people paid, including minus the warrant, they paid $343. So functional VWAP should be a little bit higher. But do you have anything to add about VWAP, Ali?
No, I don't use it.
You don't use it? Okay. For IPOs, it's kind of my North Star.
Gotcha. Yeah, I use level 2. I just watch level 2 and I go from there. I've got it on a couple different screens. The only lines on my screens that are ever there are the ones that I've drawn.
Okay.
I'm simple. I'm really not, but with that, I'm
simple. Actually, I think there's a ton of charts here. You can make it, incomprehensible. You can put on your pivot points, your volume I have. Don't need it there. Fibs. You can start throwing Bollingers. Made up to 4. Okay, I guess you can't. You can't. They protect you from yourself.
So I used to use EMAs actually, and we found with the non-compliant tickers, EMAs work extremely well, but it's because they're older and we have a ton of data with them, and that's cool. But then when I was trying to cross over, it's basically what everybody uses. Like the indicators work because a lot of people use them.
That's right.
And so you kind of have to just figure out what the trend is. Like last summer, EMAs were huge. And then people went to, like when all the algos started picking up in the fall, a lot of people switched over to fibs because obviously that's what algos use. And then we had in the winter, and when the Santa run was grinched, everybody switched back to VWAP. And it was just, you just have to kind of pay attention to what people are talking about on social media. Like, what is everybody looking at? Because that's what makes it work. They basically manifest it to, work for them by just a bunch of people using it, which is cool. I absolutely love that. But yeah, just me. I like level 2.
Yeah, and I like level 2 as well. So VWAP seems to be the turning point for in the sort of moment of truth for IPOs where they.
Yeah. Oh yeah, and I can absolutely see that. It is an indicator right now that a lot of people are using. Like we have, just on TweetDeck right now, I've got 7 tickers up, and of those, just on the first page, 1, 2, I see the word I just see VWAP 1, 2, 3, 8 times. So yeah, people are using it. I love TweetDeck for that reason. I can just do the quick scan and kind of see what's going on. Did Matt freeze? I think Matt froze. Cool. So I'll talk for a second. Hang on, let me pull it up. Oh, I'm here. Oh, we lost Matt. Can you guys still hear me? Yeah, you guys get to see a picture of Victor. Hey guys, in YouTube, go ahead and post. Can you guys still hear me? We lost Matt. I think he got disconnected. Okay, cool. Sweet. Well, you guys get to look at Victor because I look like death right now because I'm sick and I woke up late. Allie's Latin cleric. Yay. All right. So as far as RVSN is going, I know, right? Yay, Victor. Sorry about that. Normally I'll talk and I'll share screens and stuff, but I just was not mentally prepared today. And Matt was supposed to have the medical appointments and stuff run late, so he wasn't planning this. There he is. He's back. So yeah, I wasn't prepared. But he's walking the dogs.
Okay.
Cool.
No. My phone. I was using the Wi-Fi on my phone, and my phone ran out of batteries.
Gotcha.
So, what we're seeing here now is it's not dying off VWAP. It is trying to rally a bit, and
so on my
still
side,
deciding which way it wants to go. What's
yes.
that?
So on my side, we've got level 2 support, and let me switch back
Mm-hmm.
over. I had it on the warrants. I'll switch back. So we've got support at looks like 279, and then we've got a major block still sitting at 265. So obviously it's above both of those right now. Oh, the 279 is a flasher. That means we have an algo on this already. Cool.
And what
It
does
got
that tell
algo
you?
attention first day. That's actually a really good thing as far as being bullish on it.
For day 2 or for end of day rally? What are you looking at?
For an end of day rally. If the algos pick them up and they start, so the algo, we're going to see basically the same block. It'll be on the same market maker, but it'll be the same number. So in this case, it's 2,000. I think we have a more than that. And it generally will be anywhere from like 5 to 7 cents, depending on where it's at. This one, it looks like a little bit wider. So we have a 265 and a 286 that it's sitting at. So it should stay within that range as long as they don't yank it. The easiest way to see algos on the first ones are when they flash. So you have to have a platform that you can watch level 2 and you can see it accurately. Thinkorswim actually kind of sucks for that. That's why I use Street Smart Edge. Webull, their mobile version honestly is better than their desktop version as far as level 2 goes. But you'll see a really big order come through, and it'll be like, 10,000 or 20,000 or 50,000, and it'll just flash for a second and then it'll go away. And that's what I call the flashers, but that's an indicator that the algos are watching it and they're kind of testing out to see how people react. So with this one, I mean, I'll probably move up my 240s. I'll leave them for right now, but I'll probably add something in between if this doesn't break down within the next probably 45 minutes. Because again, 1 o'clock is normally my best buys on pretty much everything.
I find the bottom to be usually a little bit later for the ones that die. I mean, the ones that die out for the whole day, the bottom is about 10 minutes right before the close, and those have been some of the best ones. The Night Scope and what was the other ones? AKAN. I think those both did end of day drops, but those had very different setups where they started higher than the IPO price and then got sold off and sort of bombed from there. And
wasn't AKAN boosted?
It was boosted.
Okay.
And it was a bit of an auto. I mean, very low volume on day 1, partly because it debuted so high. That was one of those kind of gift to the insiders where they, sort of not buy this, we can sell it when it opens because it's going to get pinched. But not a ton of volume up there. I mean, as you can imagine. So it's not like, the thing that and I kind of lost sight on this in the time when I burned myself pretty hard on CDU, was just because you can make, if you see a trade where it's like, if you had, it debuted at 10 and then ran to 15 and I had 1,000 shares. If I had 10,000 shares, I'd have made a fortune. It's like, if you had 10,000 shares, you'd have changed the whole, but you change the dynamic of the setup. There's only, some of these, there's only 30,000 shares being paired on the debut. If you go in and, start trying to inch up the bid, and I think that's kind of what happened in CDU, was that not a lot of people, but enough people were buying, trying to nail the big boasted, play, and lost sight of how high we'd gone before it debuted, and it didn't have any. It actually halted up, but then opened up out of the halt down, and that was the backbreaker. That's the halt of death. There's nothing you can do about it.
One of the rules that I have, personal rules, and I encourage it in the room also, but when we're loading a lot of these, especially for the lockup plays, they have such low volume because nobody cares about these. And that's actually when you want to be loading at lows on the reversal, when these have just ridiculously low volume. But that is also the time that you want to just be sitting on the bid. And I kind of feel the same way on the debuts. Like if I'm loading 10,000 shares on this and I just go ahead and slap the ask on it, and there's only 100,000 volume on the day, I'm 1/10 of the volume. Like that's not okay. You should never try to affect the volume. Right. So you should never try to affect the volume at all. That's a pumper strategy, and I'm very anti-pumper. So with these, like there was a ticker yesterday that I'm loading on. It's got a lockup expiration that was just a couple days ago. It's trading at all-time lows. I sat on the bid the entire day, and it finally filled like half of my order. And then we were joking about it in the room, and apparently one of the other people in the room was like, yeah, I was probably the other half of the volume, because the total volume for the entire day was like 7,000 shares. It was just ridiculously low. And that's just, it's one of those things, if I had gone ahead and just slapped the bid on it, then I would have been the entire volume, and that's not okay. I'm now affecting it. So just as you start trading bigger, and this is for everybody, like when you first start trading, you should be trading very small, like 50 to 100 shares, and just going with the percentages. But as your account starts to grow and as you start to adjust, you really want to pay attention to, am I affecting the volume on the daily? And if I am, how do I need to adjust that? Because if you affect it, it's going to be different the next day. And you could go from, yay, a green trade because you made it green, to it just drops out because there's still no volume. They're not ready to run it. And you're like, well, great. Now I'm like totally red. And how do you stop out of that? You can't.
Yeah,
so
no one to buy.
Yeah, just know when to buy, know when to just sit and be boring. I have some trades right now that I have literally just been sitting on it for a couple weeks and just sitting on the bid, and the bid's not doing anything. And I'll feel like this is actually something that drives me crazy. I'll have, a 500 or 1,000 share order sitting there, and I get 6 shares. I'm like, why?
Yeah, I hit that. The tiny partial fill.
Yeah, partial fills, like, come on. But on the other side of that, my biggest pet peeve is when somebody just slaps the ask with like 10 shares and the spread's like 70 cents. Why? Why did you just do that? Your 10 shares don't make any difference whatsoever. And now it's just going to come right back down. So if anybody is listening that's done that, don't do that. Don't.
How long did you sit on? One that we had run very recently was NRSN that had been pretty much from the IPO. How long have you been sitting on that one?
It wasn't that long. It was only a couple weeks. So I mean, some of them I'm on like a month or so, where I'm like actually trying to load. But that one bottomed out pretty quick, and it went back up.
It had my chart before that.
Yeah. So my chart that I here, I'm going to actually post this in my room really quick if you want to grab this. But there we go. Did it work? Yeah, it worked. Cool. Yeah. So that's my chart. The 2 bottom lines on there, that's where I was loading. And every time it would hit the bottom line, that was where my actual order was. And it would kind of fill that. And then when it ran, I had already played it. So I had an order for 1/4 at $4. And then the rest of it was at the exercise price at $6. So that is literally like, that's how I play. And yes, I played it a couple times since. I had a coffee order with, the other trader that I live with on, is it going to bounce? And that line that it bounced off of halfway up. Yeah, that one. That was close to where my order was. And then it spiked the next morning. So yay, coffee. Nice. But I'll do that occasionally because it's fun. But for the most part, after this runs, I'm not going to play it. But yeah, if you look at the bottom, that's where I'm loading. And all of my charts, I will do that. And that's just, that's the comfort zone that I have. And I just leave it there. Now, a couple of those days, I would fill like a couple hundred shares, and the volume on it was like 10,000 total. It was just so low. But that is when you want to be loading. You want to load when everybody else doesn't care about it.
And you don't want to buy the ask. You want to be setting a limit order at the bid or below that.
Limit order at the bid or below always.
Yeah.
Yeah, unless I don't have a full position when it starts moving. If the volume can support my orders, then I'll go ahead and add the rest. But my average is already going to be very low if it starts moving and I'm awake at 1 a.m. and I'm like, oh, look, there's volume. It might go today. Then I'll go ahead and fill it. But it's only if the volume can support it. yeah, I just have issues with affecting stocks. So, and apparently
it's a nice problem to have. It's not it's not something that a beginning traders even think about, and it certainly was sort of a rude wake up call to me when I realized that I was probably responsible for putting the price as high as it was when I bought in, and then suffered a pretty bad loss on it. So yeah, scale in on these longer term plays. No need to try to time the bottom all at once with one giant play. These can go lower. A $5 IPO that drops to 2, you think, oh, it can't go lower than this. Well, it can. Will it eventually get you out of that bag? If LPX hasn't happened yet, then you don't need to bag a loss yet. But leave yourself room to scale in more if it drops more. Always start a little bit smaller than I've learned. At least in my experience, the starter position should not be like a big position. It should be sort of like a starter, and that should be small, because you're expecting to either not get a huge run from just there, but you're expecting that it might keep going down, and that's where you want to be adding more, so your average cost comes down more substantially than if you bought too much at the beginning and you're buying smaller orders down below. I don't think that's the way to do it, but everyone's got their own strategies. Ali does a much better job, and I'm trying to learn a little bit more about using stop losses, between from when you started taking a position to when that ultimate spike, comes along, so that you aren't, just bag holding into that drop, but you are kind of stopping out and then buying in again, not carrying that, that difference in your account. You're actually like avoiding that, and then setting yourself up for bigger profits in the long run. Someone else pointed out something about that, and it's maybe part of a longer discussion, is that in some of the accounts, the wash sale rules don't get calculated according to strict IRS guidelines by certain trading desks. And wash rules, I don't know how much those apply to day trades, but wash rules are when you lose money on a trade and then buy back in within 30 days. And if you're using stop loss approach, I'm not sure how that affects the calculation of your profits for tax purposes. It's a boring but actually kind of important topic if you're
so the 2 years that I've filed have been the first year I was under TDA also, and so I did TDA and IB and Trade Zero, and Trade Zero was a nightmare, which is why I didn't use them at all last year. I went ahead and opened up again just because I had the problems with the OTC uplists with Webull, and I got really frustrated. I got stuck in one of them for like 3 days, and it went from a very, very green trade to, are you kidding me? I was livid, and I generally do not get, like, I don't get angry. And I was all over Webull, like, fix this. This is stupid. But with that,
have they? Because they, as I understand, they're not the ones to use for those. Yeah.
No, I definitely learned not to use it. And that was the only one, but that was enough of a loss for me. I ended up cutting it, and it was like a $1,200 loss. And that is way over my max loss. My max loss for any trade is going to be $1,000, and that's an overall. And because I couldn't sell it, because I couldn't get out of it, I was messaging them constantly. Like every hour, I'm like,
tweeting at them. Yeah,
I tweeted at them. Yeah, that was the one I blew up Twitter about. I was not okay. So that one took a pretty good loss on it. And then, of course, it's never really. What was it? It was FB or F. It was one of those. Anyways, I can look it up. I don't want to though. But because of that, I opened up. Yeah, I don't want to rehash it. But because of that, right after I refilled my Trade Zero account as a just in case, because we know that you have no issues with them with OTCs. But as far as the taxes went, Webull is actually really great with doing the calculations on everything, and everything was accurate. I went through my thousands of trades, and yes, we were good. IB is really good with it. IB has been around forever, so I would assume that they know what they're doing. And then, Trade Zero, because you have to download everything and then manually upload. Oh, I'm going to limit the trades on that. Like that one's like my OTC uplist only from now on, because I don't want to go through, thousands of trades manually on that. As far as the other brokers, I don't know on the wash sales. I know that TDA, I was still new trading, so I did have a lot of wash sales. It was my first year, and it seemed like it was okay. And my accountant was like, yeah, you're fine. And I didn't get killed on taxes that year. So I would assume that they're good with it also. Probably the older brokers are a little bit better. But definitely, so there's a couple things that I tell all traders to check out. So green, what is it? Green trader tax? It's green something. Let me look it up right now. But green trader, let's see what comes up. Yeah, so it's literally, the website is Green Trader Tax. That's one that I recommend to everybody, because that's what they do. And they can tell you, like, if you messed up last year and you're filing this year, they tell you what you need to do for next year to fix it. Because there are certain forms that we have to fill out as day traders that basically gets us the benefit of, not being killed on taxes. So definitely, like, this is not a plug for them by any means. Yes, I've used them, but it's just, they're there. Michael Good was actually the one that referred me to them, but they have a ton of resources. So even if you don't use them, use their resources. The IRS website for traders is horrible. So try to be careful on that. But the other thing, if you are a profitable trader, just get an accountant. I can't emphasize that enough. I see all of these horror stories right now on social media with people owing, 10 times their net worth on crypto because nobody knows how to actually do the taxes on crypto. Like it's something new. So go to an accountant that knows what they're doing. Interview your accountant. So don't just go to, whoever. But yeah, this year's going to be fun for me. This will be the first year I'm doing the 475 as a just in case. I've never done that before. So the Form 475 basically allows you, if you take a loss 1 year, you can, I think it's over 3 years maybe. I don't remember the exact on it, but basically you can stagger it out. So, I mean, hey, if I blow up this year, I want to be prepared for next year type thing. And with my stop loss, I'll do that.
Form 474?
It's 475. Yeah. And it's right on their homepage. Like they talk all about it. And yeah. The correct knowledge.
Can you refile your taxes and like include that stuff if you didn't do it?
As far as I know, you've got a couple years to do like corrections and things like that on your taxes. So I don't have the definite answer, but I would assume so, just because I got audited 1 year and they let me adjust. It was something 3 years back I had missed. It was back when I was still in school. And it was something I missed. And they're like, you've got this, $15,000 that you could have. So it ended up being a refund for me, which was cool. So thank you, IRS, for catching that. But that never happens. But yeah, I mean, if you can file back, I wouldn't see any reason that you wouldn't be able to adjust things. So don't hold me on that, but IRS is their own thing, but I would think. So Andrew says, this is in my room. He said, I paid for TurboTax Premier, matched with someone who is not familiar with trading and taxes. Oof. So yeah, if that happens, you guys, and you are, using one of the tax services online, which most of us actually do, make sure you get somebody who's knowledgeable. And if not, ask them to get you with somebody else. You don't want somebody who's not knowledgeable with trading.
So I'm going to start to wind this down. We are kind of baselining right now with RVSN. I would take a look at those level twos. We got 25,000 share order at 260, 35,000 at 250, and the volume has fallen down to 3, 5,000, 10,000. Doesn't mean we can't. I do expect 260 to get pulled. When I see these baselines like this, that's not way down low, I still expect to see something dip. So if I were to try to get a starter going, it might be at 260. off a little bit more at 251, maybe 261, 251. But like Ali said, don't rush into these. Wait until, I would say actually just wait until at least 1 o'clock. I probably even wait longer than that. I see 2:30 as the time when I see a lot of these bottom out. So kind of 2:20, I start watching. And this has, definitely has potential to drop quite a bit more. I like the day 2 run better if I see this sort of just trail off down from here. The reason for that is that tells me that people just kind of sold off, and the people who continued to buy wherever that's at are the people who are going to pump it on day 2. These big numbers to me don't really look like the accumulators. They look more to me like the underwriter trying to hold the price up. But it's really hard to tell at this point. I would just
had an
say
overallotment on this. What was the amount?
There we go.
Oh, it's Aegis also. Aegis a lot of times will they'll oversell and then do the naked short flip. So let me see if they have that clause. Of course they do.
Mm-hmm. Explain that a little
page
bit.
99. So with the over allotment, they can oversell the initial, and that would create a short position. And then, of course, that's where the over allotment comes in with that 45 days to use the over allotment. And that's basically to cover. In this one, they have 532,500 additional ordinary shares that are pre-funded, which is 15% of the ordinary shares to use as the over allotment. And then, of course, the 45 days, they get these shares basically just for registration. So the penny or 1/100 of a penny or 1/10 of a penny, whichever it is. And then they'll have
they get paid as the underwriter.
Yes, exactly. So they have a stabilization clause, and I always save those. It was already saved. Let me see if I can link it. Nope, it won't let me. All right, so I'm gonna put this in my room so that you can pull the link on it, because YouTube won't let me post a link. I don't know why. That's so weird. I guess because I'm not the host. I can post a link when I'm the host. All right, so there it is. So that should take you directly to the stabilization clause. Sorry for the sniffling. My meds are wearing off.
Right. It's kind of bouncing around here at the 270 level. It's still got a bit of a spread here. I don't see buyers chasing this up. Any random point it could run, but it looks to me like sellers are sort of being a little picky. Buyers are being picky. They're sort of maybe that's a sign of accumulation. But I'm going to watch it. I'm gonna walk the dogs. I'm gonna come back in a little bit, not to the video. I'll probably be in Ali's room and in the IPO Warriors Reddit thread, which I will attempt to post a link here. There are all these cool things I never use. I can post this in the chat, and yeah, that's the IPO Warriors thread. So I'm in there chatting quite a bit. If did that do what I was hoping it would do? No. Show. There we go.
I'm going to draw some lines on the chart. This is starting to have a baseline.
Okay.
And I will share those. Sorry for the sniffling. Like, I cannot stop right now. My meds should not have worn off yet. Come on. Yeah, so we have support based on the volume profile, which you guys know that I use. And then we have resistance also based on the volume profile. All right, so I'm going to do a pop out on this. I'll post it. Let me change the colors on these really quick so you can see them, because the white lines don't always show up really well. And red. All right, so doing the pop out. Yeah, I'm going to put it in Discord. Give me 1 second. Okay, there you go. So those lines are the channel that I would be looking to play in. And it's a pretty, I mean, it looks huge on the screen because it's, you know, day one, but I mean, it's a pretty tight channel that it's gotten into, which is really nice. And the lines are actually based on the volume profile versus the price. That's where I always draw them.
Okay, so you're saying 265 to 272?
Let me.
Or are you saying outside of these lines?
It'd be
like,
probably 287 would be the top right now. And then, yeah, 262 is definitely the bottom. And so the green on the side, or teal, whichever color it shows up on your screen, that is going to be the volume profile. And that's where the bulk of the holders right now are at. So if it breaks below that, stop losses are going to hit. If it breaks above that, we're going to have sellers. So that is generally my line until it gets crazy volume. Once it gets volume, then it's generally going to break out of that. And I would adjust my lines to see what the next channel is. Now, the crazy thing about these, a lot of times those channels that I draw the first day or the first couple days, I can look at those when the lockup expirations hit 6 months later, and those lines are still valid. It's the weirdest thing.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, there's usually a reason for it. It's where people are in, people's positions are.
Yep. So, side note for everybody, if you guys are planning on playing this longer term, I don't care what the company posts. It's fluffy, and they try to get attention. It's like Stewart on Mad TV, where they're like, "Look at me, you know, look what I can do," type thing, and it's survival mode. That's all it is. So they can have the best thing in the entire world, and Tesla's going to buy them, and whatever else, it's fluff. So just keep in mind that you want to play the chart, not what the company narrative is.
Yeah. When you get those spikes, take your profits. Rule number one, take profits without regret. Rule number two, don't chase. If this thing does spike and you're like, oh, they got approved by, I don't know, the New York
Amtrak.
Metro system, Amtrak, yeah. It flies, first day. This is going to be huge. It's going to be the biggest thing. They're going to revolutionize the railway industry. It's like, take profits, don't chase. If you didn't get in before that big run, don't go trying to buy it up at the, after it's already run. You're just trading against algorithms, day traders, and, it's a very risky game. I like to be in these. I think Allie likes to be in these before they spike. So if you're accumulating today and it spikes in the morning, take your profits. No regret. If you didn't get in and it spikes, don't go chasing it. You stick to those rules, protect your downside. Probably need some kind of stop loss rule. I'm still waiting to find my rule number 3, but it's probably something about stop losses or how to avoid losses.
Stop losses, save accounts.
Yeah,
they really
unless you get stuck in a halt, then you're just screwed. But don't chase would have kept me out of my big huge loss. But after that, take your profits on this one. If you guys, I'm gonna go ahead and shut this down. Allie, thank you so much for joining me, guys. Follow Allie on Twitter. I try to get
Trading Fit Girl, all lowercase, no spaces.
Yeah.
My name is like weird. It's 3D Insights right now, and that had to do with my guide. The second guide was Trading Insights, so I was like, let's match it. So just Trading Fit Girl, all lowercase. And watch the videos. I've been doing a ton of videos lately on all of these IPO lockups, and it literally tells you what to expect, and it's not hindsight. I hate the hindsight videos. They drive me crazy. So what to expect in advance so that you can be in the right position and not chase. No chasing.
Yeah. All right. So thanks, Allie. Thanks all. I'm going to sign off.
Happy Thursday,
probably
guys.
Try to do this again tomorrow if I can. I got to do some banking stuff tomorrow morning as well.
I'll be driving to Vegas, so I will not be around.
All right. It'll be a one-man show. Definitely not as fun, but maybe we'll get some more action on the Twitter.
Crossing
So
fingers.
tomorrow we have XPON, QSAM is an uplisting, IVDA is an uplisting, and WLDS is an IPO. These should all be at least worth watching, and hopefully we get them, and maybe we even get GNS going live tomorrow. So maybe we'll have a full slate. All right,
Crossing
guys.
fingers.
Take care.
Bye, guys.
Bye, guys.